Hello and welcome to Will Watches. Happy New Year. 2021 was a great year for cinema. We finally had cinemas reopening again and getting a bit more of that full movie experience. And there's some great TV shows and anime this year as well. So this is going to be my ranking of everything I saw this year. This is things that have come out this year, but also things that have come out in previous year that I also saw this year. This is just a great opportunity for me to share some more thoughts once I've had a bit more time to digest stuff, and I can cover stuff that I haven't seen on the channel, haven't shown you guys, like Wandavision. I'd watched that before I started the channel, so I can share some of my other thoughts. Also, you might have noticed a brand new look for the channel. I decided to vamp up my intro and my outro and some of the graphics and things. Not too big of a change, but just a slight change for the new year. So I have everything I saw this year here in a tier maker. I might share this as well with a link in the description if you want to do it. Maybe send them to me on Twitter. We can compare and contrast what we enjoyed this year. I'm bound to have missed a few things, but I think I have almost everything covered here. I definitely have everything I covered on the channel here. So first off, we have American Psycho. I'm going to slap that in the A tier. Just very solid. It's quite iconic at this point. I'd seen and heard a lot of things about it. The self-care speech at the start is great. Patrick Bateman is such a great character. Just a great performance by Christian Bale. Just a very solid movie. Next is Nomadland. Nomadland was one of the first movies that I had reacted to, but I do think it is a bit overrated. I think Frances McDormand gives a great performance, but it relies a lot on the non-actors, and I don't know, there's a few problems with that. I still don't know, how well they were compensated for their roles, and it can feel a bit like it's profiting off of them. And then there's a lot of things where it decides not to take a stance on things, like the way it works with the Amazon workers. There's quite a few kind of moral problems I guess I have with the movie. As a movie itself, it was fine enough. It was just kind of like one of those movies where nothing happens and it's just kind of like a meandering story. It was enjoyable, but I wasn't like blown away by it like a lot of other people were. I'm going to put it in C tier for now. That might change later. Okay, so next is Arrival. Arrival is one of my favourite movies. If you saw the video, you know how much I love it. I've seen it loads of times. Denis Villeneuve is a great director. Amy Adams gives a great performance. Louise, the character, she's such a great, strong female character. It's just a great movie. The way it uses these time travel elements and how it's revealed to you throughout the movie is just spectacular. That's S tier, definitely. Next is The Eternals. I think this film is severely underrated. I've seen it a few times now and I really enjoy it each time. I think there are some pacing problems, but I actually enjoyed this more than Nomadland. Nomadland won Best Picture at the Oscars, and then Eternals was kind of criticised pretty heavily when it came out, but I enjoy Eternals more than Nomadland, I think. There's a lot of build-up during the movie, but I think all of that build-up really pays off when we get to the end, and there's a lot of inclusion here that was really great. All of the stuff with Makari being deaf. I saw this tweet saying that there was a huge spike in people wanting to learn sign language after this movie had come out. And of course, Fastos in this, a lot of people criticize this movie, saying it was too woke because they had this gay couple in it. And that was just rubbish criticism, because Fastos, his relationship is, he only has 5 minutes and has one of the best relationships in the MCU. The relationship actually motivates him and pushes him forward as a character, unlike a lot of other relationships in the MCU where it just feels like it's something tacked on. It's actually something integral to his character. I just really enjoy this movie. I think I'm going to put it in the high B tier for now, but I might put that up later. Okay, so The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, one of my favourite films. It's just such a great message. It's really fun and adventurous, and it just pushes you to go out and live a great life. I'm going to put this in S tier. Trainspotting 2, I thought was a great follow-up to the first. I don't think it was as good as the first, but I think it was very strong as a follow-up. The way it critiqued this kind of capitalizing on nostalgia was really effective. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to put it in the B tier. Jujutsu Kaisen is just shonen anime distilled down into its complete parts. It just cuts all of the fat, trims all the fat, all of the filler is gone, and it just distills it down into what makes shonen so great. So many great fight scenes and great characters. I can't wait for Jujutsu Kaisen 0 that actually comes out on the day of filming today, but I don't know when it will be available for release on streaming services and things, because I definitely want to react to it. And whenever season 2 comes out, I will definitely be giving it a watch. I'm going to put that in A tier. Okay, so Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This was the first show I actually finished on the channel. I actually have a little Lego Captain Falcon up there. You probably can't see him. Yeah, I got this little Lego Captain Falcon to kind of celebrate it being the first show that I finished on the channel. I really enjoyed it when I first watched it. I do think upon reflection and having a bit more time to digest it, there were some problems with it, especially kind of the villain side. Carly wasn't a super strong villain, but I still really enjoyed all of the things it was trying to say. And for a Marvel project, it went a lot deeper than I was expecting, tackling some of these racial issues. I'm going to put it in the A tier for now, but kind of the low end of the A tier, I guess. Okay, No Time to Die. This is one that I never covered on the channel. I haven't actually seen all of the Daniel Craig Bond films. I've only seen Skyfall, Spectre, and this, so I am missing out on some of that other knowledge, but I did enjoy this. There were some problems with it, mainly with the villain again. Rami Malek is such a great actor, but his character, the motivation wasn't very clear. It wasn't very clear on that. There's this great moment with him and Blofeld where you know he has the nanobots on his hand, and this is a great moment of tension. You're just waiting, knowing that he's going to touch him eventually in that scene. That was a great scene. I remember in the cinema watching that scene and thinking, wow, this is such a great scene. I'm going to put this in the B tier for now. I think the ending of it was really great. It's quite a good send-off for Bond, for Daniel Craig as Bond. Okay, American Animals. American Animals is a great film. I really love it. I did a commentary for this, and I think it's my least viewed video. I know it's a very underrated film. It's not very popular at all, but I just love Bart Layton and his style, how he incorporates the real world and the documentary style and kind of blends it all together. The way there's this unreliable narrator, it just really works really well. I really enjoy this film. I'm going to put it at the top of A tier. Okay, American History X. It's a very difficult watch. There's a lot of strong emotional imagery and moments. It's a difficult watch, but that's for good reason. It tackles a lot of things and it does it really well. Edward Norton's performance in this is amazing. You're just kind of entranced the whole time. Some of the film you feel disgusted. It's really visceral and emotional and just really effective on emotion and an emotional level. Is going to go in A tier. I think Star Wars Visions, it can be hit or miss. Two of the episodes I really loved, The Village Bride and The Ninth Jedi. They were spectacular, like S tier. I was considering putting all of the episodes separately on here. If I'd done The Village Bride and The Ninth Jedi, they would both be in S tier. But then some of the other ones, like Tatooine Rhapsody, that would probably be in D tier. There's such a fluctuation in the quality. It's such a great idea. I just think a lot of the studios need more time with their episodes. I'm going to put this in C tier. Okay, 500 Days of Summer. I really enjoyed this. I think my experience with it would have maybe been better if I didn't already know what it was about. I don't know if it relies too much on that twist. I think it's still very enjoyable even if you know about what happens. There's some really cool filmmaking here and the performances here are quite good as well. I think maybe me getting to it so late might have affected my opinion on it a bit, but I'm going to put it in the C tier. Okay, Anastasia. I know this is when the guy who worked with Disney, he kind of broke away from Disney, and you can kind of see the influence of the Disney films here. It's kind of trying to be a Disney film, but it still has its own unique personality a bit. I think some of the animation in this can be hit or miss with the rotoscoping. I'm not a huge fan of rotoscoping most of the time. So there were some here that I thought looked really dodgy, but then some other characters that weren't rotoscope looked really great. I think in terms of the narrative, it's something we've seen quite a bit before. It's not really anything unique, but it does it, and it does it well. I'm going to put this in C tier. I think Black Widow was enjoyable. There were some good action scenes. Introducing Yelena as a character was great. I really loved her in this and in Hawkeye. But I think this is just oddly placed. This should have happened just after Civil War. It shouldn't have been released in 2021. This is a film we should have got 5 years ago. And I think there are a few problems with the villain, mainly with Taskmaster as well. Dreykov, Ray Winston, he just isn't intimidating. He doesn't feel believable as a villain. And then Taskmaster, I get what they were going for with her. I think they could have done it well, but it just wasn't as effective emotionally as it should have been. I think it would have been better if Taskmaster had a voice and she could talk and had a bit of personality. It actually just gave the actress playing her something to do, something to grasp onto a bit more. I'm going to put this in C tier. Taken, Liam Neeson gives a great performance. It's just kind of the action revenge story that you expect it to be. It does exactly what it says on the tin. It doesn't do anything kind of spectacular, but I really love how it builds up the relationship with his daughter at the start. It actually spends a bit of time for us to get invested with the characters. There's some good action pieces here, and there is a lot more emotion in it than I was expecting. I'm going to put it at the tail end of B tier. Okay, Spider-Man No Way Home. This film just feels so much like an event. It feels like the return to cinema that we've all been waiting for. You know, it's like the biggest film we've had since Avengers Endgame. I think there are a few problems. There's some of it that is a bit overhyped, but if you're just there for the excitement and the hype, it works really well. There are some great moments here. I really love how dark it is at times as well, and some of the filmmaking. There's that scene with the great dolly zoom with the spider sense. That was amazing, and all the fun character interactions are great as well. There's just a bit of a problem with the pacing, and once you get over the hype a bit, I think there are a few problems, but I'm still going to put this in A tier. Okay, The Lighthouse. Very confusing film. The way it was shot was great. I love the filmmaking. I love the black and white with it. It's just one of those films that's very open-ended. Some people will love it, some people will hate it. It's very artsy in that way. I think some people will think it's very pretentious. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't like falling in love with it. I'm just going to put it in B tier. I know my review for Dune was quite controversial. I think it has the worst like to dislike ratio of any of my videos. I did enjoy Dune. I think Timothée Chalamet's performance was good. I loved all of the filmmaking. The technical side of it was great. All of the VFX. I just think as a story, because of how incomplete it is as a story, there's just not much I can judge it on at the moment. I have to wait for there to be a sequel so I can fully get an understanding of what the story is trying to tell, because it just kind of cuts off. And that's one of the problems with these part one stories. I just wish we had more of it. I enjoyed where it was going. It was just an incomplete story. I'm going to put it in C tier. Hunt for the Wilderpeople is one of my favourite movies. All of the comedy in it is just great, and it's filled with so much heart. Julian Dennison gives an outstanding breakout performance here. Sam Neill as well. Just Taika Waititi's charm and charisma is just oozing out of this. It's an amazing film. This is going in S tier easily. Okay, A Silent Voice. I really enjoy A Silent Voice. Always makes me cry at the ending. It always gets compared to Your Name, and I try to kind of separate them a bit just because it does a disservice to both of them to constantly be comparing them. It's just a great emotional ride. I'm going to put it in A tier. I think that's just because there's a few things where I feel like it doesn't make the most out of the medium. It is obviously very beautifully animated. Okay, Your Name. Your Name is one of my favourite films. It's just so emotionally visceral. The twist in it is amazing. And of course, it is gorgeous. Makoto Shinkai films, they are always beautifully animated. And of course, the music by Radwimps is just spectacular. This is going in S tier. Okay, 28 Days Later. I really love this. Cillian Murphy gives a great performance. I love this take on the zombies, the kind of fast zombies. I think nowadays the zombies are kind of outplayed, but this was before we had got this kind of zombie fatigue. And of course the music in this is just iconic. I'm going to put this in A tier. Judas and the Black Messiah, one of the first videos I did on the channel. I really enjoyed it at the time, but like looking back on it now, there's not that much memorable about it. I really can't remember much about the film. That may be because so much of my memory of it was taken up by all of the copyright issues I was having with the video, but there's just not a lot here that I found that memorable. But there were some great moments and there was some great performances in this as well. I'm going to put it in B tier. Okay, The Nightmare Before Christmas. Really enjoyable, really creepy with all of the stop motion. I really love stop motion as a medium. Some great songs in this as well. And just kind of like a nice Christmassy, heartfelt message. But I wasn't like blown away by it. I'm going to put this in B tier. I really loved Little Women. Greta Gerwig is such a phenomenal director. She's so great at this kind of nostalgic imagery. And then all of the sisters really play off of each other really well. I was really invested in all of the drama. I just really enjoyed this. I'm going to put this in A tier. Okay, Love Actually, very iconic Christmas movie by Richard Curtis. I really enjoyed most of the subplots. It was just really nice and wholesome, but I think there was a few things I was expecting from it that I didn't quite get. Some of his other films and his Doctor Who episode are really kind of heartfelt and gut-wrenching. This one didn't rip my heart out like I was expecting, but it was still really enjoyable. I'm going to put this in C tier for now. But there were some problematic things with it, like all of the fat phobia, calling that girl fat, she is just like a regular woman. She wasn't fat at all. The way that there were weird power dynamics in some of the relationships weren't exactly the best to promote, but it was still really enjoyable film. Those things don't bother me too much, but they're kind of important to point out. They don't ruin the film for me, but it's just important to acknowledge those things, you know? Okay, The Sound of Metal. This was the first movie reaction I did on the channel, so there is a bit of me that does feel nostalgic about it, but also there's a lot of things in this film that I didn't like, just in terms of the messaging around the cochlear implants. I know there's a lot of deaf people who had problems with it. I shared Drew Eichelstein, I think I pronounced his name right. I shared his Letterboxd review. He is a deaf person who had a lot of problems with this film, but I know there's also deaf people that agree with this film. There's kind of this divide in the community. Riz Ahmed gives a great performance, and there is some great filmmaking here with the sound design, but just from a moral standpoint, it's quite hard to get behind. I'm going to put it in C tier. Primer, very confusing movie, but it's such an inspiration knowing how low budget this was, how anyone can just pick up a camera if they really have a great idea. They have the motivation and the inspiration. Anyone can make a great movie for very little money. This is a testament to that. I really want to rewatch this as well at some point just to grasp even more of what was going on. It's just so much happening with the time travel. It's very confusing, but that's on purpose. I was just really invested in this. This is going to go in B tier. Okay, The Prince of Egypt. This was my first video that really blew up, kind of put me on the map. I really enjoyed the movie. The animation was gorgeous. The music was great as well. The relationship between Ramses and Moses was great, seeing their brotherly bond and it kind of fall apart. Really tragic. I know a lot of people think this is the greatest animated movie of all time. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as some other people do, but it was still really fun and a great movie. I'm going to put it in B tier. Okay, Saving Private Ryan. I personally am not a huge fan of war films, but I think this does it really well. I think a lot of war films, even if they are critiques on war, they can still glorify war by showing all of this camaraderie. This does show the horrors of war, obviously, but some of it still does feel a bit kind of like American propaganda, how much the flag is used and things like that. It's not too bad, but it's still noticeable, especially if you're not from America. In terms of the actual content of the film, really visceral and emotional. I know a lot of people get really emotional at the ending of it. I teared up. I'm going to put this in A tier. I think some of my experience with Alien could have been better just in terms of, because I already knew so much about Alien through pop culture. I didn't quite have the same experience as people going in to see it when it first came out. When you knew nothing about it, you never knew who was coming out alive. You don't know any of the alien design. All you know is just the "in space, no one can hear you scream" tagline. So a lot of like kind of the tension of that was taken away from me, but there was still a lot here to be enjoyed. I'm going to put this in B tier. Moon was really carried by Sam Rockwell's performance. He does a great job here. It's really great seeing this kind of lower budget film, seeing how much it can do with that budget, being this sci-fi film. You know, if you have a lower budget, you probably think, oh, I'll do something more grounded, but they go all out with this sci-fi theme. You know, just having one actor, he really just carries this whole film, and there's some great twists and critiques on capitalism here. I really enjoyed it. This is going in A tier. Spencer really wasn't what I was expecting in the cinema. I'd gone there with my mum expecting it to be this kind of standard biopic of Princess Diana, but it's much more of a deep dive into her psychology, into her mind. I think because it wasn't what I was expecting, my experience of it wasn't the best. It took a while for me to kind of get into it. I think, okay, this is what it's going for. It's not just your standard biopic. But Kristen Stewart gives a great performance here. I'm going to put it in B tier. I really loved Shang Chi. The ending of this was great. I teared up when that bit where he's kind of falling through the sky. The relationship with Wenwu, his father, was great. All the action here was really great. And the music was just spectacular. Again, that moment where he's kind of falling through the sky, that music, I've listened to that music over and over again just because of how great it is. Some of the comedy here works really well. It's great to see Trevor back. I'm going to put this in A tier. Train to Busan is now my most viewed video on the channel. That might kind of taint my perception of it, but I still really love this movie. It just nails everything it needs to do. Super emotional. All of the action is great. Don Lee was great in this. It was great seeing him in Eternals as well. I love the zombies. They were super fast and intimidating. It just gets everything right that it needs to get right. I'm putting this in S tier. The French Dispatch is just Wes Anderson distilled down into his best, but he also mixes things up a bit here, which I really liked. The way he kind of has been building up this style for years and years, and then in this movie, in one moment of tension, he breaks it, and it's just super effective. And then the way everything kind of wraps up at the end, at the start of the movie is quite confusing, but the way it wraps up towards the end is just so clever, and I really enjoyed it. Also, I'd got to go and see some of the props and sets from this. It was really fun to see them before I'd seen the movie and then see how they were incorporated into the final movie. It was just a great time. This is going in S tier. Okay, Trainspotting, super iconic. It just captures this kind of late 80s, early 90s vibe. You just get put into Scotland at this time frame. All of the really creative filmmaking by Danny Boyle is great. You get really invested with all of the characters. I'm putting this in A tier. Okay, Coraline, great piece of stop motion animation by Leica. I love Leica as a studio. They just released banger after banger. This was great. I love some of the more darker imagery and theming here. There was just so much attention to detail when it comes to all of the models and all of the sets. This is going in B tier. Okay, Minari, another one of the films I did really early on in the channel. I really loved this. I was super invested in it. It's just a really well polished finished product. This is my first video to break 1,000 views. This is going in A tier. Okay, Fight Club. Fight Club is Fight Club, you know. I'm not allowed to talk about it. You've all seen Fight Club. You know how great it is. It's going in S tier. Okay, What If? I think this is going to be my first D tier pick. It's just really inconsistent. Some of the ideas here are really fun, but I'm really not that big of a fan of the animation style. I think in some episodes it can look better than others. The backgrounds were okay, it's just the 3D characters, I didn't really love them. And it was just really hit or miss. The Doctor Strange episode was really great, but the rest, they just didn't really do much for me. Mean Girls was just hilarious. I'm mad that I hadn't seen it sooner. It's just so iconic. So many quotable catchphrases and moments. I really loved it. It's going in A tier. Okay, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. It was just kind of dumb, goofy fun. There really isn't much to talk about with it. It just felt like a Saturday morning cartoon. There's nothing really to latch onto it that gives it any depth. I'm also going to put this in D tier. Okay, Luca. Luca was super fun, gorgeous animation. There's very obviously the message here. That's a very strong allegory for LGBTQ themes, and this message of just teaching you to be yourself. It's just super great. This is going in A tier. Okay, Loki. As much as I'm emotionally attached to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I think this is the strongest out of all of the Disney Plus MCU shows. There were some problems with it. I know a lot of people critique the Sylvie-Loki relationship. I quite enjoyed that. I really love some of the action, seeing the variants. That was great. I think episode 4 and 5 of this were amazing. I loved introducing Kang in the finale. It was a shame that he was only introduced for one episode, but Jonathan Majors did do a great job in the little time that he had. This is going in A tier. Okay, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I've only just watched this. Jim Carrey gives a great performance. Great Christmas time, feel-good film. All of the prosthetics and the makeup and the prop making and the sets as well. It was all just really well crafted. This is going in B tier. Okay, The Pianist. Adrian Brody gives a great performance. Of course, he is the youngest person to ever win Best Actor for this role. Very hard watch, of course. Anything to do with Nazis and Jewish people during World War II, there's going to be a lot of emotion there, and it's going to be a very difficult watch. But it's just a really great, well-crafted film. This is going in A tier. Okay, Last Night in Soho. I think Last Night in Soho is the biggest disappointment of the year for me. I love Edgar Wright, but a lot of this film, it just feels like a bit of a misstep for him. Some of the story and the messaging gets a bit muddled up here. That's the last thing you want in a story that deals with sexual assault like this film does. You really want the message you want to be sending to be really clear, and it just isn't in this film. And then a lot of the kind of horror elements aren't done super well. The kind of monsters and the ghosts aren't that scary. There are some good bits of filmmaking and some good performances, but overall it was a bit of a disappointment. I'm putting this in D tier. There was a lot of excitement and hype around Wandavision, a lot of mystery as well, both within the story and for the audience. We didn't really know what the scope of these MCU Disney Plus shows would be, and it being the first one, I think really benefits it because we hadn't fallen into the routine with them. We didn't kind of know what to expect. I think they've become a bit formulaic as they've gone on, but WandaVision, it didn't suffer from that because it was the first. Some of the theorizing around the show really damaged it in a way because a lot of people had very high expectations, but it was still really good. Great performances. I think the middle of the show is where it is at its best. The start was a bit confusing and the end wasn't amazing, but still really good and enjoyable. I'm going to put it in A tier. Okay, Raya and the Last Dragon. Really great film. I think a lot of people were expecting this to be much darker and more serious and action focused than it was in the final product just because of the trailer, but I was kind of skeptical of that because I was like, it's a Disney film, of course there's going to be jokes and comedic characters, but it's still very action focused. The action was great in this and it was a great story. I'm putting this in B tier. Okay, The White Tiger. I don't think this film was that memorable. It was trying too hard to just kind of be this version of Parasite. There's a lot of similarities there. There just wasn't anything here that really stood out to me loads. Some of the story was interesting, but it was kind of predictable. You knew where it was going. I'm going to put this in D tier. Okay, Hawkeye. Hawkeye is just kind of this fun Christmas romp, really light-hearted. There's a lot of things here that's done really well. I love Yelena in it. The finale is always where these Disney Plus shows need to work on. It always kind of falls flat. Bringing Kingpin in was great, but we had so little of him. I just wanted more time with him. It was just kind of fun and enjoyable. I'm going to put it in C tier. Okay, and finally, The Suicide Squad. James Gunn has just nailed this kind of comic book feeling. It's super fun and campy, but also there's characters that have a lot of heart and kind of emotional weight in it as well. Just a really solid film. There was some kind of pacing issues. I think some characters didn't necessarily need to be there. Like Harley's kind of subplot wasn't really that necessary. I don't think Harley was really necessary in this film. She was good in it, and obviously she's like the most marketable character, but she didn't really add much to the final product. But overall, the film is just such a great package, really emotional and heartfelt, really funny. It just works really well. The DCEU can have a lot of up and downs, but this is one of their best, I think. This is going in A tier. Okay, so I've ranked everything, but I think I'm just going to go through and see if there's any changes I want to make in terms of the ordering within the ranks, or if I might move anything up or down. I'm actually going to move Eternals up, I think. I do really enjoy it. I think I'm going to move it up to A tier. I'm going to move Star Wars Visions up, I think. Okay, I think I'm happy with this final list now. It might seem a bit top heavy, but that's because when I'm choosing a film to watch and react to, or to go and see, I'm seeking out good films, you know. I'm not going to purposely go see a film that I think I'm not going to enjoy. So I think that's why it might seem like it's a bit top heavy. There's a lot of A's, B's and S's here. But this year was just a great year for cinema. Hopefully 2022 will also be great. I'm going to be making much more content, even more movie reactions, and bringing in new shows and anime as well to the channel. Attack on Titan will be starting as it airs. I've seen the previous seasons, but I'm going to be reacting to the newest season as it comes out as well. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Here's to a great 2022 for cinema and TV and anime. Thanks for watching. Bye.